In the 1840s, an English physician named Dr. Christopher Rawson Penfold decided to get really into wine. His interest wasn't so much with the deep complexity of the beverage, nor with its fascinating relationship with culture or food. Instead, he became obsessed with wine's medicinal properties. In other words, he was like your stoner friend Kyle, who thinks that pot is the cure for everything from stomach cancer to nuclear arms proliferation. And so Dr. Penfold took a trip to Europe, and in 1844 he brought French vines to Australia and started a vineyard. As Penfold was a 19th century physician, he believed that the best medicines were the ones that got you the most intoxicated. So the first medicinal wines he made were fortified wines, meaning they had additional alcohol poured into them. Shockingly, these liver-destroying, liquor-goggling, locomotive-powering wines became quite popular with the townfolk. And soon the new Penfold winery took advantage of its moment to branch out and make some other flavors of its grape-based fortified medicine for, science reasons. But it's important to note that this wasn't exactly Dr. Penfold's doing. His doctor duties took him away from winemaking, and the operation was taken over by his wife, Mary. And Mary, being a 19th century woman living in the shadow of her professional husband, did exactly what you would expect her to do. Just about single-handedly invent the Australian premium wine industry. By the time Dr. Penfold died in 1859, Mary was running Penfolds, treating the vineyard and winery not just as a business, but as a learning opportunity. Within 15 years, she'd become legendary in the region for her winemaking skills and her business acumen. Moreover, she devoted a considerable amount of energy to fighting the invasion of phylloxera, the grapevine-killing insect that was currently decimating the European wine industry. Due in part to the efforts of Mary and other growers like her, phylloxera has largely left South Australia alone to this day. In 1844, she retired. By that time, Penfold was not only producing a ton of wine, it owned about a third of the wine stores in all of Australia. Within another 20 years, it would be the largest winery in Adelaide and would spread to several other important Australian winemaking regions. By the mid-20th century, Australian tastes began to change from fortified wines to table wines, and Penfolds helped lead that charge. The company's chief winemaker at that time was a man named Max Schubert, and Penfolds sent him to Europe to study the sherry wines of Spain. But while he was in Europe, he decided to make a pit stop in Bordeaux. And upon tasting the table wines of Bordeaux, he exclaimed, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Holy fucking shit, this hooch is off the chain." When he made it back to Australia, he decided to take things in a new direction. He started work on a Bordeaux-style wine made not with the Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot that defines that famous French region, but with the Syrah that Australians had gotten so good at despite calling it Shiraz. In 1952, Schubert put out his first Bordeaux-instyled creation, a Shiraz-based wine he called Grange Hermitage, after the famous Syrah-producing Rhone appellation Hermitage. And after the Penfolds board of directors got to taste it for the first time, they exclaimed, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, "Dude, this sucks donkey dicks, never make it again." But Schubert persisted, making it every year, presumably while extending one middle finger in the board's direction. And in 1962, the release of the 7-year-old 1955 Penfolds Grange Hermitage took the Australian wine world by storm, cementing Penfolds as the country's most important premium wine producer. In the years since then, it's won 50 gold medals, won the Wine Spectator's Wine of the Year award, and, allegedly, is secretly behind all the works of Banksy. And all this truly started with the singularly impressive Mary Penfold. How badass was she? She used a telescope to spy on her workforce, and when she went down to check on them in person, she did so riding on a white mare, presumably while having her feet massaged by a very docile Chuck Norris. Next episode, we're going to be talking about Beaujolais, so see you then.